Let me ask you a question. Why do African families earn more and never seem to build more? Yes, we inherited this adaptation as a mental framework, as a set of beliefs about money, and most of us, including me, have never passed or paused to examine whether this framework still serves us right or whether it's now the very thing that is holding us back. Robert Kiyosaki, in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he wrote about this. He describes two types of financial thinking: the mindset of his educated, well meaning father who told him to study hard, get a good job, and save money. Like, this is the result of financial education, or to be more precise, financial miseducation. This has been passed down through generations and generations, and today I would like to talk about that exactly. In one of the books I read in The Millionaire Next Door, Thomas Stanley and William Danko, they spent years studying how real wealth is acquired or is built. I like to use the word built. And one of their most striking findings was that most of the millionaires don't look rich. They don't drive the newest cars, they don't live in the biggest of houses. They live quietly below their means consistently, and they accumulate. And that is the opposite of what many Africans and many African social structures reward. So financial education embedded in the African society, what we were taught, what we were shown, and what we are pressured to perform. We were pressured, or still pressured, I would say, to perform. It doesn't just limit our knowledge about money, it actively locks us into a survival mode thinking phase. And survival mode was never designed to build wealth. Let's get into it. Survival mode in financial context looks like this. Spend to meet immediate needs. You don't plan long term because the short term feels more urgent. Every financial decision is reactive. Something goes wrong, you scramble. Something goes right, you celebrate. But the needle doesn't really move because in survival mode, you are playing more of defense every single day. Your brain learns to prioritize today. Our brains have been taught to prioritize today. That is, it's not ignorance, it's just adaptation. Robert Kiyosaki, in his book The Rich Dad Poor Dad, he described two types of financial thinking: the mindset educated, well meaning father who wanted him or who told him to study hard, get good grades, save money, and the mindset of his rich dad who taught him to think about assets, income streams, and how money works. The poor dad, in quotes, the poor dad mindset is not about intelligence, it's about programming. And for many African households, that programming may sound something like this: work hard, send money home, don't make noise, don't take risk, save what you have. It's solid advice, but for what? For survival. Now, Let me paint a picture of financial education in a typical African home. What is taught? Save money in a bank, avoid debt because debt is very shameful, it's very bad, it's disgraceful. Work hard, or and if you have more than enough, share it, send money home, take care of the family. That is your obligation and that is your honor. Now, what is actually not taught is how compounding interest works, how to invest in the stock market, what assets versus liabilities actually mean, how to structure businesses for equity, how to use debt in a good way or as a tool, tax efficiency, wealth diversification. These concepts are largely absent from the African household and the African educational system. Now, I want to I want to honor something important. Uh, the Ajo, the Esusu, the Jangi method in Africa, in West Africa, it's something which like a group of people come together, and for every month, this group of people contribute and give to an individual, to a different individual every month to help him or her in a business or in rotating savings tradition. It was brilliant. It is still brilliant up to now. They are community driven, disciplined, and trust based financial systems. In a world without any formal financial infrastructure, our ancestors built their own, which till date still serves a very, very important role in many communities, especially back home. But there is always a limitation to such. The the Jangi gets you through the month. It rarely becomes an investment. Very few um, Jangi houses that we call them or SL houses, they would give you enough money to make a full-fledged investment. The capital is always rotated. It's not grown. It's not steady. It's the same amount of money to everyone. The community is from access to this lump sum, not from compounding wealth over time. So there's no growth. The millionaire next door makes a point that is as painful in its simplicity as ever. Wealth is built through frugality combined with consistent long term investing. Now, frugality is a word we Africans don't really like in depth. That combination, the African culture has the frugality instinct, absolutely, but the surplus is too often redirected into supporting extended family, into building a house in the village, into keeping up appearances, new clothes, cars, into visible wealth. This is where we must be honest about the big man culture. In many African societies, wealth is not measured by what you have built, it is measured by what you can show that you have, the car you drive, the house you stay in, the shoes you wear, the clothes you wear, the party you throw, the compound which you stay in, or the estates, as they will say it. And the tragedy here is invisible wealth is the only kind that compounds. You have the stocks, you have the bonds, you have the business equity, you have portfolio, real estate portfolios. These are quietly while you sleep. These grow quietly while you sleep, sorry. But they they don't earn you the applause of family gatherings and friends, So we underfund them. We don't pay interest to them because they don't give us that gratification. So where do we go from here? I'm not going to tell you to quit your job tomorrow and start a business. I'm not going to give you a list of hot stocks to buy. That's not why I'm here. That's not what this is about. This is about something more fundamental. This is about beginning to examine financial scripts, the financial scripts you inherited. This is about deciding which ones still serve you and which ones don't. Here are three things to do this week. You can audit your financial scripts, sit down seriously, take 10 to 15 minutes and write down where you were taught, what you were taught about money when growing up. What did your parents say? What did you observe? What did people around you do with money? Just get it on paper. Awareness is the beginning of everything. For example, like me, while we were growing up, they always told me we never had money discussions. All I knew about was save the little you have, and if you don't have enough to save, or if you don't have enough to get what you want, spend it. You get, you spend it. In pidgin, they say they'll always say if the money not correct for buy to you want am, chop am. If your plan was to buy a piece of land and the money isn't enough, spend it on something else. That was one of the core values I grew up with, and I saw it being implemented quite a few times. And again, after writing this down, I began to understand that this was one of the financial scripts I grew up with. Number two is identify one liability you are currently funding and ask whether any part of that money could become an asset or could become useful in getting an asset. I'm not saying you should stop living or stop how your life is moving now. I'm just saying you should look clearly at your spending and find one place where a small redirection could start building something. Number three, read one of the books we referenced today, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door, Making It Big by Femi Otedola. Just pick one, commit to it. These are not long books, but the ideas in them are life changing. Who knows? I may be giving out free copies in some time to come. So, survival mode was a gift. Let's be clear. It was a tool that our parents, our people used to endure, used to survive, used to hold on to what they had, to make it through circumstances that were not of their making. But the survival mode was never the destination, it was never the aim. You are not here to just get through every day. You are here to build something. You are here to leave something behind. You are here to leave a legacy. You are here to ensure that the generation after you starts higher than you did, not from the same ground floor or running at the same pace. So, survival kept your parents alive. Survival made your parents walk so you could run. You were made for more than survival. So if you enjoyed this, if you felt if this story resonated with you, Here's the question I want you who is watching to sit with. What will it look like if an entire generation of African young people with the mindset, the tools, and the permission to think beyond survival? This should not be a fantasy. This is not a fantasy, but it requires us to radically change what we teach and what we celebrate as a society and as families. What does the shift really look like? I'll give you three frameworks here. Number one, asset first thinking. Kiyosaki's most powerful idea is deceptively simple. Rich people buy assets, poor and middle class people buy liabilities and call them assets. An asset puts money in your pocket and a liability takes money out. The car which you're buying to impress your friends or your colleagues, it's a liability. The land that appreciates and eventually generates rental income, that's an asset. The designer outfit, the Louis Vuittons, the Prada, those are all liabilities. The shares that you buy in a growing company, it's an asset. The question to ask before every major purchase is quite simple. Does this put money in my pocket or take it out? And before you buy the car, the new iPhone, what pays for the car? Have you bought something that pays for this? Framework 2, redefining what family responsibility means. This one hits or requires a lot of courage to do or to say from my path, but it has to be said. In the African culture, taking care of family is a deeply held value and it's a beautiful one, but we have narrowed its definition to giving people money now. What if we expanded it? What if taking care of your family meant building assets that will benefit your children's children's children? What if it meant teaching your family how money works, not just giving them some of it? There's a difference between giving your nephew fish or teaching your friend or family how to fish and giving them the fish. Okay, so it's the same proverb who says, give a man fish and satisfy him for that day, and teach him how to fish and satisfy him for the rest of his life. Generational wealth is a family responsibility, perhaps the most profound expression of it. Now, framework 3 is the power of time. The millionaire next door shows us something that every young African person must feel urgency and hope simultaneously. Wealth is built by being in the market for a long time and not by timing the market. Even if you do, wealth is built by staying in the market for a long time. You don't need to start with millions of naira, millions of francs CFA, millions of Ghana cedis. You you just you just need to start. Okay, you just need to start and not stop. You need to start and not stop. Every small, consistent amount invested over 20 to 30 years compound into something that they save everything in the bank app not cannot compare to or cannot match. And I want to challenge the narrative that our culture doesn't invest. That is simply no longer true. Look at the growth of the African fintech companies. Look at the retail investing platforms across Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa. Look at the African diaspora communities, how much they are shifting from sending remittances that get consumed to structuring investments that build the culture, that build. The culture is actually, I would say, the culture is evolving. The infrastructure already exists. The question now is whether the mindset will be able to catch up.